Hey, Latinos in Clinical Research, welcome back. We're doing a very special COVID series, and the first episode's actually going to be about sites and,
Mhm.
how COVID has affected sites. I know myself and Monica, and we have other people from the site level on here as well. COVID's affected sites for better or for worse. I think a little bit of, or not a little bit, a lot of both. And I think there's a lot of things that we can discuss and see, how does COVID change the research site going forward? Does it change it at all? What are some of the challenges still going on with COVID? And things like that. So, I'll introduce Monica. I want to thank Ashley for putting the series on. It's a great idea to do this. And then Chris will come on too. He runs a site with me. And then Judy runs a site as well. So hopefully Judy joins us a little bit. And then let us know in the comments if anybody else from a site level, because we want to hear from you. We want to hear your comments. And yeah, so we'll go that way. So Monica, you're the one from the our sites that is, in the trenches every day dealing with patients, CRAs. What is it like? What is it like during COVID? Like, what's going on? How did it affect the site for COVID?
Obviously, it affect like you were saying, positive in a positive way, in a negative way too. So let's just start with the negative and then we go with the positive part.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The negative part, obviously, is that a lot of the patients got scared because of the virus. So especially because they relate somehow research with COVID, just because obviously a lot of this research were happening in many sites, and they just well, a lot of our patients they thought that we were working with COVID at the office, even though that we say that we didn't, and we start following the guidelines, and we reduced the amount of patients that we were seeing daily. I will say that we reduced that at least 60%. And so that was one of the things that the patients got scared of about going to the sites.
Mhm.
And then when it comes to the rest of the things, like for example monitoring visits, and then and the day-to-day work at the office, a lot of things we were able to do it remotely, like for example completing regulatory, even though that we obviously don't bring the regulatory binders, we keep all the records organized for each study. So that was one thing that we were able to do. And and then with the monitoring visits, that what changed was that we were able to do it remotely. However, that's more work for the sites,
Mhm.
because when the monitor goes to the site, you just leave the monitor there, work their own thing while you do other things. But when it's remotely, you have to be there. So it's more work for the site.
Yeah, and I can
And
speak from
I think probably everybody will agree with me, or anybody that work in the site level. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, there's a lot of things changed for the better. I think very little has changed for the worse. I think
Yeah.
all the bad things are temporary, in my opinion. CRAs, everybody, we did a poll actually on Latinos in Research Instagram. Thanks to our amazing social media marketer,
shout out
Chanel.
Chanel.
Shout out to Chanel. But she posted on Instagram a poll, and I did the same thing on my Instagram. And 80% of sites, CRAs, CRCs, it was like 80% prefer in-person monitoring
Oh yes.
visits. So I think all the negatives, like, remote visits, patients afraid to come in. I think the negatives are short term, even if short term is like a year in this case. We are in a
Yeah.
pandemic, But I think long term, I think we see the importance of the site because, yeah, technology, things like Viva are going to become increasingly important, especially with the e-regulatory that they do. And we hope to have somebody from Viva join us and
Yeah.
present on one of these Zooms. So I think sites improved a little bit of their, if some a lot more than others, of their capabilities. I think I personally know sites that have taken on COVID studies and have been making very good money as far as like revenue is concerned. So I think the good definitely outweighs the bad from a business
Yeah.
perspective.
I mean,
At a
Yeah.
research site, even though the first 3 months was scary. I mean, everybody was scared those first 3 months. We didn't know what's going to happen. But I think long term, looking at this, and I look really long term, one of the most important things I think with this vaccine is that it's the first time it's a synthetic mRNA vaccine. They can produce these things now in days,
Yes.
right? Even
I was.
hours. So it's going to lead to a whole new opportunity for
yeah.
vaccine studies. Like it's a
From the
paradigm
CRO
shift.
I
expective. Oh, sorry, Monica. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
From the perspective, there's definitely, like y'all said, more work. I also feel like on our end, there was, as a remote type monitor, there's a lot of work too, because typically, as you said, the monitor goes on site and they clear out queries or anything like that. Any issues in this situation for the CRO, we just have them backed up and until we can actually go on site. So there's just a pile up. So once the monitor is ready to go on site, it's like, okay, I got to be there for a few days because there's a lot, that we got to clear out and confirm and all this stuff. So I think that, yeah, there was some negatives, but that brings way for a lot of innovation and finding better ways to now virtually confirm things, making it easier, on both the site and the CRO or the sponsor, however you want to put it, making it more efficient, coming forward, making things move faster and quicker. And yeah, so I feel like, and I know you've said this before, Dan, where it's like, during COVID, it's a lot of people saw, I feel like, although it was bad, a lot of success because people had time to focus in on projects and really grow. And I mean, this organization
Yeah.
is a testament to that. I mean, look at us, here we are, we have 800 and some followers now in a few months. And,
What do
we're,
you think?
oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to ask, what do you think about the overall effects on healthcare? So I don't have my camera on because I'm driving back from Las Vegas, where I just met with a neurologist who is about to go out of business. And I've seen this with rheumatologists, neurologists, a lot of specialties whose patients have been so scared to come in the last year, they're almost out of business, which I think is going to lead to less access to healthcare, especially those that really need it. On the other hand, it's been an opportunity for me because now I'm bringing research to these doctors' offices. So personally, it's been a benefit. But I think overall, there's going to be effect on the availability of access to healthcare because I think there's a lot of doctors that are going out of business or just closing their doors because they haven't been able to operate. I know of a couple of rheumatologists that have seen that because people have there's a large lot of people with autoimmune diseases or that are highly susceptible to COVID that are just terrified and have not left their house. They won't even go to doctor's appointments. And it's actually to a disservice to them.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen that?
Well, I mean, here I actually haven't seen that personally. I network with doctors a lot. Monica networks with doctors even more than I do. Monica's doing it all these days. Oh my gosh, but
Yeah.
that's another webinar. That's another webinar in and of itself. But Lee, yeah, I mean, I think the worst is behind us though, because I think anybody who was going to shut down from a doctor's office perspective, like not clinical research, just doctor's office. I don't know if they're going to keep shutting down because in California alone, we had like 9 million people as of yesterday vaccinated, right? And the states has like what, 45 million. So that's what, 20% maybe of the state already vaccinated. And so, I mean, you're going to get to the point where half of the population's vaccinated, and I don't think patients are going to be afraid for much longer to come out. I know Texas, Missouri just completely opened up today,
Yeah.
100% occupancy, no masks. so as far as doctors are concerned, I understand, especially the ones who treat like highly susceptible, at-risk patients. But I think those patients would be amongst the first to get vaccinated. I think it's another opportunity with those doctors to
I
do
agree.
research, like for
Mhm.
Yeah,
sites.
Yeah, I
exactly.
actually one doctor contacted me 2 days ago because he has kind of the same issue, and now he's planning on opening research. So um, there are a lot of more opportunities. I mean, especially if you have a a doctor degree, right?
Mhm.
I am reading right now a message by Leslie Pink. She's saying if there is a business that might go out of business, they should contact me, please. Leslie Francis at Seniors Health, and she left the phone number there.
Phone
Yeah,
number
and
is
It's
352-214-8765. That's 352-214-8765. If you're a doctor's office or a site, I guess, about to go out of business,
mm,
Senios is here to help.
uh,
yeah,
Uh,
and
thank you, Leslie, for
I
that.
appreciate you asking that question, Lee, because that's partially why we wanted to have this webinar, because we know that there's been a lot of discussions about COVID, but as far as clinical research is concerned, we really wanted to focus on the questions that people really aren't, well, at least that we haven't heard of that they're talking about. For instance, how are subjects getting affected in the research, right? If you're having a patient on a protocol that also took the vaccination, how's the site handling it if there's side effects coming from that vaccination, and how you're documenting it and going about through the protocol and all those things like that. So we want to talk about these specific topics because sites are going to be going through this as the vaccination continues to roll out, and more and more people, especially those that can be, that are more susceptible, right? And those typically have comorbidities. Those are the ones that are also involved in research, right? So we want to make sure that we're talking about these things, really important questions to be asked and spoken about. So thank you so much for that. As far as
Yeah,
that
no,
question.
Lee's always bringing the good questions. And
yes.
by the way, if anybody has questions, either type them or speak up like Lee did.
Mhm.
Um, as a CRA, because I monitor a few sites, I've noticed I have like one site in San Francisco, which was a very strict, still is a strict city, like one of the strictest probably in the country actually. They have not screened one patient since the pandemic started, I want to say. And then I have another one in LA, same study, and they have, but they're nowhere near screening like what they would have. So I know it's and these are oncology studies. So I know it has impacted screening in a major way. Now, both of those sites are starting to pick up their activity. But look what's going to happen now. Sponsors are, and Ashley, you can maybe talk about this, but sponsors are having to change protocols now. So I know some protocols are having a special procedure for patients, like for the IE criteria, inclusion exclusion, for patients who have had the vaccine, right? Like I've seen some studies where they're not allowing people with vaccine. I've seen some studies where they are. I've seen some studies where they're making it a mandatory for the patient. So it's all over the place, really, as far as the sponsors are concerned. But from the site's perspective, there's a lot of opportunities. I think there's going to be a lot of long-term safety studies for these vaccines. I think there's going to be more treatment studies. Because even if half of the population gets vaccinated, and I think that's a lot. I mean, I don't know if that's even going to happen this year.
Mhm.
You're still going to have the other half not vaccinated. They're going to need treatments. This is just going to lead to more studies, both for the vaccine and for treatments. And the fact that we can create, or not we, but the industry can create vaccines for other indications now so quickly, it's going to open up. I mean, that's a whole new platform, the mRNA, synthetic mRNA, for new vaccines going forward and new studies that haven't been even thought about in the past. So I personally, I'm very bullish on the industry as a whole, and for
Mhm.
sites also. Um, Chris, who's
Yeah,
on,
if
negotiates
there is
budgets.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
That's
a
what I
good
was.
indicator. You know, Chris, I don't know if you're on, but
Yeah, he is.
you're a
He
good
is on.
barometer for the industry because through our consulting service, you negotiate anyone's budget who wants it negotiated. So based on how
He does
many,
a really good job too.
oh, there you go,
I
Lee.
think you
That's
lead.
like, I've seen budgets from people who don't use you, and ours is substantially higher. So very good job, Chris. And thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
Hey, thank you.
Chris is happy and blushing now. Thank you, Lee.
I don't know about blushing, but happy.
So what's the pulse? You got your finger on the pulse of the industry as far as studies. So what are you seeing? You've been busier than ever.
Yeah, it's still predominantly COVID related, COVID or COVID related. But there's certainly studies in other indications. It's just not what I would expect. So this is the busiest time of year for seeing budgets, studies being awarded, I would say. And it's probably 60% of what it was last year, pre-COVID. I guess right now it's kind of COVID. So maybe the year before, about 60% of pre-COVID levels for other indications. But certainly the COVID studies make up for that. There's more studies now than ever, including COVID.
Yeah, well, we are receiving a lot of more leads for studies this time than ever. Like right now, I have many feasibility questionnaires to fill up.
Oh yeah, yeah, they're still very prevalent, and most of the sites are, no, I shouldn't say most, but many sites are doing a lot of COVID studies. So, you know, they're focusing on that, and they don't have time for the other studies. So it just makes the
Compensate.
necessity for sites and participation just all that much more, because they're overall, when you include COVID, there's more studies now than ever.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
I agree. And also it's pushing the industry obviously to develop new technology to make it happen.
Mhm.
And I have seen also not all, but a lot of the budgets have been adjusting to this, to the COVID in different ways. What do you think about that, Chris?
So the biggest adjustment is the need for PPE and maybe overhead. So overhead's a little higher now because there is additional time requirements for the site in terms of cleaning and dealing with the potential for COVID. So it's a little bit more time intensive for sites, and the sponsors recognize that, so they are paying a little bit more for overhead, and maybe just a straight fee for PPE too. And depending on the study, maybe they provide PPE.
And the monitoring visits now, remote monitoring visits, some studies pay for that.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and also obviously I have seen also some protocols that have been adjusting also, for example, to add telehealth now to the
Mhm.
visits, which in the past was much more difficult to see something like that. I mean, even with the COVID, still the studies are still adjusting, but I have been seeing it more than before.
So with the telehealth, so
Like,
that's dependent on a lot of factors and what, if at all, the sponsor will pay for that. Many providers already have a telehealth system in place, so they will pay for it if something needs to be implemented oftentimes, but their expectations are that especially private practices already have some sort of telehealth in place.
yes.
Well,
Hey,
yeah.
this is Pat.
Hi, Cassandra.
Hi.
Hey. I just wanted to see, could I share some observations that I've had?
Yes, for
Absolutely.
sure.
Oh, okay, awesome. So sorry, it's my husband's birthday, so I wanted to join, but I'm not on video. But so what we've seen on the technology side, right? Like 70% of our sponsors and CRO clients have adopted new technology. So where before they were only thinking about eTMF, since COVID, we've seen greater adoption in like e-feasibility, as like it was a nice to have, and now they're coming to us saying, hey, you guys do eTMF, like can you guys do more We've seen also remote monitoring rooms, which a lot of people were like, no, we're good. Now they're saying like, what do you have? How can you help us? How can we get the monitoring done from our sites, because everyone's remote now. So we've seen from the technology side a lot of greater adoption, where a lot of sponsors were like, yeah, it's good, we're covered. And then now they're saying like, actually they're coming to us saying, what can we do? How can you help? So that has been a huge change and increase that I think we didn't see prior to COVID, and we're now seeing it.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it's, again, a big opening for like partnerships and things like that, you know, not just on the like tech side, but, you know, in the sense of, you know, like Leroy had mentioned, you know, where doctors are going out of business, it's an opportunity for them to link up with home health or for provider care services and find ways to direct their, you know, services to their patients that with companies that are already going to the home, right? There's a lot of different ways to think outside the box and bring some innovation. It's just a matter of, you know, who can we call, who can we speak to, who can we network with? And that's why we have, you know, Latinos in clinical research, right? We want to bring all that here together. We are working on future projects where we want to bring in, you know, the tech aspect and all sorts of other things so that we can bring more resources to you, right? Because ultimately, right, it's about word of mouth, but women find those resources. So definitely, again, you know, thank you, Cassandra. It's really helpful that you speak out and let us know on your perspective, and for everybody else too, because we get to see what it is that your challenges are, what you're going through. It helps us kind of figure out how it is that we can help as an organization, right? But I guess going back to, you know, the topic, so something that I was personally interested to know, you know, is you all as clinical research professionals, maybe even site owners, you know, bringing up the topic of vaccination, because our next webinar on this COVID series is going to be specifically on discussing vaccinations and comparing them and all of that. How are y'all going about it here at your sites? Are you all getting vaccinated? Is it, obviously it's not, I don't think it's being mandatory, but I know for different areas, you know, I've heard of people, all sites completely getting both doses, some getting dosed, some of them not. And just curious about, you know, how things are happening. I don't know, Monica, if you want to maybe start in on how y'all are going about it at your site.
Well, right now, obviously the vaccines are not yet available for everybody. So we're kind of waiting on that and see what's going to happen. But we were thinking, and actually we discussed this with Julie the other day, that we were thinking if for example, if a site should make this mandatory for the employees or not, because at the end of the day, you're dealing with patients every day. And then the same thing happens with the patients, because obviously the patients could also bring the condition or the COVID to the site. So it really, I think that's a matter also of the different type of sites, the amount of patients that they see, the group of people working at the site, and then obviously the therapeutic area where they specialize on, because there are some conditions that are obviously more critical than other ones. So it goes, that will be something like it goes case by case, I will say, depending on the site and all the characteristics that involve this.
Yeah,
I know some sites that, for example, with they specialize in oncology, that everybody has already been vaccinated.
Yeah.
Everyone at my site has been vaccinated.
Awesome.
That's great.
Was that company mandate, or just that's how it happened to play out?
No, well, what happened was, because we're doing almost exclusively COVID trials right now. We're doing another vaccine trial. It's not a COVID trial, but we had everybody went and got it on their own except for one coordinator. And I told her, you know, she qualifies for it. She said she didn't want to get it. And I told her it was her choice. I'm not, you know, it's a free country. She can get it or not. But I did tell her that you're still going to be expected to work with COVID patients, and you haven't been here 6 months yet. So if you get sick, you're just out. It's not like hazard pay or anything. I said, I'll pay for you to go get vaccinated, but you can live, or you're going to have to live with your choices one way or the other. I'm not going to force you to get vaccinated. And then she was like, well, what if I get COVID? And I go, well, when you get COVID, so she went and got a vaccine. She was like, yeah, I better get vaccinated. I said, good decision.
I mean, it's a workplace hazard. I had this conversation with Chris myself. In July, I'm moving to Arizona. There was an opportunity, Lee. And by the way, Lee, what is your study, the other vaccine study that you have that's not COVID? Do you know if that's an mRNA vaccine or old school vaccine?
I don't have it yet.
Okay.
I don't have it yet, but there's actually two two different vaccines for two different indications.
Okay.
One is mRNA,
Yeah.
and one is,
See?
but I don't want to go into too much detail.
Yeah, no, don't. We don't want you to get sued
Yeah,
or
that-
lose the study over this. But this just proves my point. My hypothesis is that, look, this mRNA thing, people are just thinking this is not a big deal. It's just COVID. This is not just COVID. This is a new way to do vaccines. This opens up a whole new opportunity for vaccine studies, not just COVID, right? But Chris and I had this conversation about the site we're going to open in Arizona in July. Because we were getting COVID studies, like potential COVID studies, and we still might. And I had COVID, but this would be 6 months after, and most of the data shows 6 months you have immunity of some sort. So because it was going to be COVID study, I was going to get vaccinated if we were going to do COVID studies. And anybody who works there, kind of like Lee, I would have kind of had the same conversation with them. So it's really like case by case. What is your site doing? Like if you're doing just psychiatric, I don't know. I mean, you hope enough of the patients have been vaccinated to where they're not spreading. It's a sensitive issue. And, luckily we have small sites, because I could see how this is a very controversial issue, even like for the bigger sites who do all kinds of studies. And I just wanted to know what other people think on this Zoom about this. I mean, I don't have answers. I'm just, thinking out loud.
Yeah.
And I see Letty. Letty, we're supposed to have a phone call. I am sorry. I don't know what we're doing.
I know where to find you, Dan. Not to worry.
We're just phone tagging it up for 2 weeks. But Letty, you do patient recruitment, right?
We impact patient recruitment through site identification and pre-feasibility services. So we do have, just the technology around data-driven site identification. And this is, obviously for me. Yeah, go for it.
Not to put you on the spot, but like, what are you guys doing? Like, as far as from a feasibility, is this even a question you're asking sites? Like, hey, do you have a vaccination plan for the staff or anything like that?
I would imagine our clients do that. So we pretty much provide the avenue to accelerate site identification based on sort of our data analytics.
Okay.
And so we make nominations, but ultimately it's the sponsors that are kind of getting that depth and breadth of
Ashley, you're at a CRO. Do they mandate? I don't think any CRO has mandated vaccinations for their CRAs, right?
No, my CRO is very, very supportive in everyone's individual perspective as far as whether they want to take it or not. And I'm super grateful for that. So no, nothing like that. I mean, I do see, not just for our CRO, but probably, all CROs where there might be an issue as far as like traveling later for any traveling CRAs that may not want to get the vaccine, or so I mean, I can see how there might be issues moving forward once things start to really relax and stuff like that, especially if there's any sites that are in different states and they're having to constantly fly and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of hurdles that still need to be overcome for sure, most definitely. And it's like, and then it comes down to also like a topic that we had spoken about last time, where was how they're putting first, right, those that are vulnerable, but then also the healthcare workers. However, clinical research, consider, you're in the healthcare setting, you're in a site, you're working with patients, subjects. Why isn't that, they're not being put at the top of the line as well, right? For those that more specifically want it. And I think, Monica, I think the last time we spoke, you had mentioned that the ACRP had sent out a letter for advocation. I think it was you or Judy had mentioned it for.
I think you didn't mention it.
Judy,
Yeah.
yeah. There was a letter sent up ACRP to advocate for clinical researchers to
Yeah.
be, pushed forward. So yeah.
Yeah, we discussed that the other day, about the because I actually was looking today at the CDC website and I couldn't find anything related to clinical research workers,
They're
like
not, yeah,
everything
they
else.
won't have it. What they're gonna
Everything
do, the
else.
CROs and these sponsors, they're so big. If they're not gonna make a decision, because if they make any decision on either side, they're open to liability. If they tell their staff you have to get, if you're a traveling CRA, you have to get vaccinated, and then somebody gets like a really bad AE, or maybe not even a really bad AE, they're gonna be open to liability, and vice versa. If they tell them, well, it's optional, then somebody's going to get COVID and then blame them, so this is a no-win. I think what they're going to do is follow federal guidelines, CDC guidelines, like you were saying, Monica. But I mean, this is not going to be, this industry is not going to be the one to innovate on this front. We did enough innovating with creating the vaccine and all that stuff and doing the studies. They're not going to innovate in terms of policy or like setting the policy for what they should be doing. They're going to follow CDC guidelines, and right now it's very vague. There's nothing, right? I know some of the airlines started doing vaccination requirements, but not all, or not most. Or at least there's been talk about that. So I don't know. This is going to be interesting, definitely interesting going forward. But a lot of the interesting things that happened during COVID that kind of get lost in the mix. So there was the entire movement. This is why Latinos in clinical research was born. I mean, and then Black women in clinical research, who we've kind of followed. We're kind of riding in their where they blazed the trail, and we're following. But there was a whole bunch of talk about equality, inclusion, 2020, that I think is impacting the industry in a tremendous way. One of the ways being, we need more clinicians who are actually treating these patients, these underrepresented patients, to do research. Then there was the mRNA vaccine. That's like a paradigm shift. Now there's an explosion in gene therapy. They've discovered, this one is really underrated. Algorithms discovered how proteins fold, so they can make molecules like really quickly because they know how the proteins are going to react. This is all bullish signs for the industry and for employment as well, because look, with more studies, you're going to need more staff to work it. So all these issues we're dealing with now, I think these are just short-term issues. I don't think remote monitoring is here to stay, but I'm just one person. I mean, I think remote monitoring is going to become a tool. So maybe not every visit is going to be in person, but I
I
think
agree.
the majority of visits will be, because monitors prefer and sites prefer that. I also don't think the majority of patient visits are going to be virtual, but I do think it's going to be option in some cases. So the hybrid model of patients and monitoring, I think we're going to see that. And who knows, maybe that allows for more efficient trials or greater capacity of doing studies. I don't know. That remains to be seen. It's all theories at this point. And we have major consolidation in the CRO space. We just went from 6 major CROs to 5. What happens when we go from 5 to 4 or 5 to 3? They're now going to dictate basically innovation. So that's probably, the consolidation is probably the bearish model, because if basically consolidation stifles innovation, and I think we would have less trials if there was only one CRO. But yeah, there's a lot that we're gonna learn this year in 2021.
For sure. And just to top off what you said, considering everything you said, I could agree 110%. And I think for that, saying that if you are with a major CRO that has any teachings or trainings that they make available, we are in the technological era. And I think we're going to be moving forward from here on out with that. Just like Dan had said, we're going to be doing this in person, but maybe also a little bit virtual as well as other like techs and stuff. So focus, education in that area, focus in the vaccinations, focus in gene therapy, learn some courses on all this because this is really where everything's going. I generalize your information, learn more, and try to pack on that knowledge, because ultimately I think, especially as you're going forward, whether you're at site level or you're at lower level at a CRO, the more knowledge you come with, especially gearing towards what the future is coming with, I think you have a lot to move forward with that. I mean, it's kind of jumping off topic, but I just felt like I needed to say that based off what was Dan was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
going back to the sites, and then what he was asking, what was her name? Tina, I think.
Letty?
Letty, about the feasibility questionnaires. And I have seen in the feasibility questionnaires, obviously, a lot of questions about COVID, and if the site has any like a backup plan in the case that it comes back again, or that we have to be again in quarantine. So that's one question that I have seen more. And also, sorry, Letty, that I forgot your name. And then the other thing that I have seen is if the site has availability to do the telehealth. So those are two
Absolutely.
questions that I haven't seen before, and now I'm
Yep.
seeing it in every single feasibility.
Yeah, absolutely. That is precisely our reality. And again, because the way we're applying, obviously, exclusively working through a platform. So technology is the way that we are moving forward as it relates to, onboarding sites. And so our feasibility is, it's a platform, Accelatral, which is our proprietary system. But I have to say that has been on the site level, as well as for the sponsors, an incredible, yet well-positioned during these times for sure. But I think that we have been adding in those pieces of operational readiness, sort of what is the timelines, what is the bandwidth in terms of research staff, all critical pieces that as we partner with sponsors, that's exactly the kind of information we want to ensure that we're capturing proactively to ensure that, the sites have that available, and it's something that is critical to, report back to the sponsors.
Letty, I want to ask you a kind of obvious question, but I can help it. I want to ask this. It's like, for example, if a site doesn't have any backup plan or any team put in place to cover for this COVID, will they get like disqualified, or like, I mean, that if a site doesn't have a backup plan, then they will be just like out of the equation?
They're prioritizing. I think that's kind of what it is. It's a prioritization depending on what we're recruiting for. So obviously for COVID, because of the competitive landscape for our COVID trials, I think that there tends to be yes and no. And, there's always sort of, depending on the study team, different levels of flexibility, but absolutely prioritization is based on, are they able to effectively, have access to EHR, telehealth, monitoring, just virtual visits, a combination of, telephone and sort of through Zoom. But yeah, I think that clearly those are the sites that are being prioritized.
That's great to know. Or for example, sites that have interest on it and they will be open to be part of a study if it involves telehealth, but they don't have like the experience. That will be another factor. I think that the sponsor would probably prioritize too.
Yeah, sure.
Yep, definitely. I would agree.
Yeah, and that brings up another macro overarching theme is the data companies are going to win.
Yeah.
And, we're going to get to the point where the vendors, either they get acquired by the CROs or they're going to become more dominant than the CROs. Because right now the CROs run the industry. I mean,
Mhm.
sure, the sponsors pay for everything, but there's only 5 major CROs. They do like, what, 80% of the studies? Somebody's got to do the survey on that. But let's say 5 CROs do 80% of the studies. So the other 100 do the other 20. And now you have only a few really like high-tech vendors out there. I'm not going to name any, but you all know who they are if you're in the industry.
Mhm.
And they're just going to get better because they're the ones investing in this. The CROs don't want to invest in technology. They do it because they have to.
Mhm.
And now that you're going to get less CROs competing, they're going to have less incentive to invest in these kind of platforms. And so it's going to open the way for, the tech vendors in this space. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how that plays out. But the sites definitely not investing in technology. They're lucky to do the e-source, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about big data analytics, AI, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, this is Judy. I'm joining the call.
Judy,
Judy.
I saw the
Judy,
chat.
we're talking about you.
But
You are
I just
the
wanted to kind of give my input on this, because I think I agree with all of you, but I think it's a combination. As a site, you have to start investing in some of these electronic systems. If not, you're not going to last. I mean, honestly, this last year kind of showed us like who is going to be able to continue and who won't be able to continue, and you have to get with it. At the same time, the CRO sponsors are using all these different vendors. Like we just had a SIV last week with a sponsor on a child migraine study, and they have a system they're using. I forgot who the vendor is, that has electronic source, electronic like regulatory, IVRS within the system. I forgot everything. There's only one login. We're only logging into one system to do everything for the patient. And I know it's awesome. I didn't even realize they had that already. So I think that's the way it's going to be. If that happens to work, and I think as they're implementing it with all their studies, that's going to be the way to go. The less vendors they work with, and they just have this one vendor that incorporates all of those systems, that's the one that's going to win.
We need the name of that vendor.
Well, we all know the name of the vendor. I think I know who it is. But the one who is going to be able to own the e-source, own the EDC, connect those two things together.
And make them talk to each other. That's the key. If they get like the study, they're all going to talk to each other. So everything we're doing in the study, it goes into the system and it's feeding into all these different IVRS, EDC, whatever. And we don't have to like go and log in and pull the report for labs and none of that. So that's awesome. I love that.
Take it one step further, Judy, because okay, let's say this is a vendor, it's not a CRO, but let's say the vendor becomes a CRO or acquires a CRO. And then we already know CROs are opening sites. So is this whole end-to-end solution really a way for like one company to run an entire trial?
No,
on their own?
they can't. You know what? I don't think that's going to work, that model, because honestly, we're on a trial. And I just got on the trial because I wanted to see what it was like. We're on a virtual trial with a company and we're reviewing our charts. If we find any potential candidates, we're going to send it to the company and they go forward with contacting the patient, enrolling, doing remote visits, whatever. But that's not working. It's not working for the study we're on. I don't see it working for a lot of other studies. I think the concept seems like it would work, but now that they're actually doing it, they're not enrolling, they're not getting the patients they need. They still need the sites to do the work too. So I don't think you can eliminate sites. And the reason I took on that study is I just wanted to see how it was going to work.
I agree with you, Judy. I think the personal, the face-to-face and the contact is important.
Especially with, minority groups, right? More specifically like Latinos, it's super important how we can connect with them. And it's especially because, you know, some of the groups, they're not everybody's fully inclined with all these new technologies, lack of resources and things like that. So to just assume that they'd be comfortable doing something virtually when it's already difficult enough, sometimes just getting them in the clinic and talking one-on-one with the doctor and feeling comfortable, you know, it's very difficult.
And you're right. You're right, because we're throwing all these systems on these patients and subjects, because we do a lot of children adolescent studies, and we have an e-diary, and then they have to like do all these other things electronically. And maybe the younger generation, we catch it on very fast. The older, you know, patient population, they're not that tech savvy, or they don't want to do it. They don't want to be on their phone and computer trying to do all these things. So it's going to be a combination. I think there's going to be hybrid models, you know, where you do need the sites and you can do a lot of stuff electronically, but to go 100% electronic for everything is not going to work. Definitely not in Hispanic communities. I don't know about other communities, but it's not working right now. It didn't work last year. We had a lot of issues with that. Even with consent, that was an issue. So yeah, I don't know. I guess last year we went through a lot of changes. This year will be, I guess, what vendors are going to dominate, what studies are going to work, what studies don't, what type of models work. We'll find out this year, I guess.
Yeah, and
I agree with you totally, Judy. And even, I mean, not just with the Latino population, but for example, for us, just we work with CNS patients, and just just to complete the inform of consent form electronically was a hassle.
Oh yeah.
So we ended up doing everything just in paper, because some patients definitely, they just don't like it. They can do it, or sometimes it's difficult. Like, let's say, for example, patients that are elderly, that's another population that more likely is not gonna like that. And obviously they are sometimes open for that, and you can guide them and help them. But sometimes, because the technology is too advanced for them, is difficult for them, even if they are open to complete this or to follow the instructions. So if, for example, if you send one of these patients home with a electronic diary, probably that data is not going to be that good, because they don't even know how to use it, even if you spend hours explaining them.
Right. And the other issue that we got to consider, like sites who have these, is we're going to be investing more money and time into staff, maybe even having staff just training our patients on how to use the electronic diary, how to do everything else, kind of like where they can contact them whenever they need them, for site staff, because a coordinator can't do this all, they need support. So as we start moving forward and doing all that, you know, digital electronic stuff, who at the site is going to be responsible for ensuring all of that works and that patients are doing it? And that can't be the coordinator. It has to be additional people. Maybe we need our own IT people within our site. I don't know. You know?
Yeah, there's a lot to follow into that. It's definitely going to be an interesting next, I think, 2 to 3 years to see how much growth this is going to bring and what like transitions it's going to bring on sites. But I definitely feel that with our population, Latinos, and also other minority populations, it's really important and a super huge factor we need to focus on. And that's why we all want this, you know, organization to be kind of that bridge with the sponsors and even the tech vendors, you know, so that they can understand that it's not just about making it easy and efficient, because even easy and efficient, you know, perspectives different, right? Depending on where you're coming from and, you know, your region and how old you are and your background. And so, I mean, me personally, before this, for this webinar, I was having a hard time just trying to get the Latinos logo on the Zoom call for the background, you know, and I'm, you know, younger generation, you know, so like it takes time. It's difficult, you know, we all adjust differently. And so, and I think if most of our subjects are going to be a certain age range and things like that, you have to really take into consideration what they prefer, right? And so we're hoping that maybe we could be that bridge, and through you all giving us your perspectives, you know, being that voice from the sites or the CRO aspect, that would be very helpful to get some more input. But yeah, I mean, it's very, very interesting. We'll see how all this plays out.
This is Jude. What I can recommend to sites, that's something that we've already implemented. You guys probably talked about it, electronic regulatories. system, or a CTMS that has electronic regulatory e-source in it. If you find the right system, it's amazing. The electronic regulatory, oh my gosh, has saved us so much time, so much paper that we don't have to keep, binders we don't have to keep. The fact that I can just give monitor access and they can get whatever documents they need. Definitely, that is one recommendation for anybody that is looking to transition. Look into a really good system, because that's going to save you a lot of time and money too in the long run.
Who do you use, Judy? We're not trying to plug, but
no, that's okay. But
there.
actually, it's a really good system. We use real time, and I like it because I wanted something that had a financial component to it. I can keep track of the studies, the subjects, all the visits, all the unscheduled procedures. That was an issue before, that I had to keep going back to my staff and like, okay, what did you do and when did you do this? Aside from that, the e-regulatory, which gives, you can give monitors access, you can give auditors access. They can download everything in a PDF. You can email them a link. If you upload something, they can go back and get it. They can look at it anytime because it's web-based. Then there's the e-source, which we just started doing in December, and I'm not an expert on it. It is very challenging to try to work with e-source and patients and get a flow. That's the one thing that we're having a little hard time with, but I think we're gonna get it.
So do you use,
and then
do you use
sorry,
e-regulatory
go
with all? Do you use e-reg with all studies?
Yes.
All your studies?
We implemented it. Yeah, we actually implemented it back in 2019. So we had already, any new studies we got in 2019, we started doing that. Then we already had it in place last year. The only new thing we added was the electronic source, which we barely started using for any new study as of December. So barely, but 3 months
you had
ago.
no objections for CROs or sponsors over the e-reg?
I didn't really ask. So they don't. I didn't really give them a choice.
Okay,
that's
one
will
way
say
to
that
go.
everybody who has I didn't really ask, but do have to say all the monitors that have used it were very happy with it. It's easy to use. They liked it, even if they had no background on real-time CTMS. They were able to find what they needed. I haven't had any pushback on it, and so yeah, we're using it.
Very nice.
We can reach out and see if we can get a demonstration.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we started using Viva Vault for regulatory, and I like it.
Viva Vault is good. I like Viva Vault.
I like it because like Judy was saying, it saves time, because all there are some documents that you're going to cross with other studies. Like for example, let's say the principal investigator CV that goes in all the studies. So you're only uploading it once, but then it goes to all the studies, and then it will give you the alarms, when is this going to expire. So you receive an email, and then the person that needs to upload the document, or like for example, if the principal investigators need to sign and upload a new CV, then they will get another email. So I think it's great.
Definitely something to look into for sure. Yeah, we use Viva Vault as well. I like that system. It's really good. Really, really good. Well, I guess we should start wrapping it up. It's about to be 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So thank you everybody for showing up. I really appreciate it. We do have another meeting again for COVID-19 vaccinations, where we'll be going over in detail each of the vaccinations and kind of giving some descriptions and discussions off of each one. And I know that Johnson & Johnson just came out recently, so that's going to be, we're going to have some interesting conversations on that. So definitely don't miss out on that. Wait for our posts to come up. It will be coming up shortly. We will have our next meeting, official monthly webinar on the 9th, correct, Monica?
Yes.
At what
March
time?
9. Yeah, March 9. I will confirm in a second. I think it's going to be at 2 p.m.
Pacific Standard
Time. Yeah, and then the following the vaccination is going to be on the 19th.
The 16th.
March 19. Oh, 16.
16th, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, 16 at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. We will have those posted up on our LinkedIn, and you will get email notifications. If you are not already subscribed to our website through the login, please do so. We already posted up the link, and we will post it up again right now. so that you can go in and register. This is just so that we also have your information on our actual email list. So just in case you're not always on LinkedIn, you will get a notice via email. So yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, that was pretty much everything. What I did want to mention, I know that they're both here, Christine Narro and Cassandra Andrade. They are our new Latinos in Clinical Research ambassadors. Just wanted to make a shout out to them. They have been amazing, assisting us in posting and also, providing some really great help and information. So we really appreciate it. I know that somebody had reached out to Dan on Instagram and had asked if we were looking for any other ambassadors. So if you are interested, we are happily, willing to talk and see how we can help each other. We definitely want to grow the organization as much as we possibly can, right, Monica?
Yes. So I was going to mention that if this is another way to subscribe. This was designed by our ambassador, Christine. So you can use this, how you call it?
Share.
This,
the QR code. QR code.
Exactly.
QR code.
This you can use this as just like the menus in the hospital. I mean, in the restaurants. Just
to get to our
our
social media tree, right? So they can instantly take you to our
website,
our IG, our Facebooks, and all of our websites and everything. I don't know, Monica, did you want to share our electronic flyer, or did you want to wait till we maybe posted that online?
Yeah, I can share it, of course.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. So we'll be posting the electronic flyer here. If you all, know of any vendors or of any sponsors or anything like that, of connections that you want to share our information with them, we'll be adding the flyer on here shortly. Please go ahead and share that just to kind of spread the word. We really want to do everything we can as an organization to represent, our minority group as the Latinos, and just grow as much as we can for you guys and just for everybody else. And Monica, Judy, did you have anything you wanted to say before we click off?
Yes, all ethnicities are welcome.
Yeah, yes, all ethnicities are welcome. Most definitely. All right.
No,
well,
just
I think you cut off, Judy, so sorry.
Thank everybody for joining us. I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us, and hopefully continue to join the future webinars and calls and everything we have.
Does anybody speak robot?
Yeah. I think she was saying thank you everybody for joining us.
I was more referring to the initial part of that.
I know.
Yes.
All right,
we're a diverse group, so probably somebody that
robots are great.
That.
I know.
Yes.
Hold on, I'm going to upload. Right, Monica, could you upload it? For some reason, it's not letting me upload.
Yeah, I will. I will in the
chat.
I'm gonna upload it in the chat.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
If we can actually do that, I don't know if we're able to.
Yeah, I actually have a link that I can share in the chat. Let me see.
Awesome. I don't know, did anybody have any questions or any questions about, any upcoming projects or webinars or anything like that before we sign off and once we have this flyer up?
Oh,
good.
what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna upload it in our LinkedIn.
Okay, so yeah, you'll be able to get that flyer on LinkedIn. Please share, you guys. The more that you share every post that we have, the more it helps the organization grow. So yeah, well, thank you so much for showing up, you guys. If you ever need anything, reach out to me, Monica, Dan, or Judy, and we're happy to help.
I'm here too.
And Chris.
Chris
is here too, but he's on no social network. So
yes, the medical. All right.
Oh.
Oh, it's a little difficult.
Yeah. Awesome.
Everybody have a
Okay.
good month.
Thanks,
Thank
you
you
guys.
You too. Letty, I'm
Thank you,
adding you
guys.
to my network.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Everybody add everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.